The political system of the People's Republic of China is based on the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army, and the state. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, claims the undisputed leadership over the whole country. Even though it has the entire power, there are still 8 other parties in China which are neither in political competition nor in opposition to it. Nevertheless, they are completely controlled by the Communist Party and forced to cooperate, which is why China represents a one-party state. These parties were founded during the Chinese Civil War and defined themselves as a kind of alternative between the Communists under Mao and the Nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek, general and former leader of the Kuomintang. The state structure follows the model of the former Soviet Union in its core elements: the political leadership role of the Communist Party, comprehensive powers of intervention of the central government over regional leaderships, the concentration of powers, or in other words, no limitation of political influence through the separation of powers between the executive, legislative and judiciary, and the subordination of individual rights to collective interests are still today essential principles of the constitutional order. Article 1 of the Constitution expresses the self-conception. The People's Republic of China is a socialist state under the People's Democratic Dictatorship, led by the working class and based on the alliance of workers and peasants. The socialist system is the basic system of the People's Republic of China. Sabotage of the socialist system by any organization or individual is prohibited. As already mentioned, the political system is based on 3 columns: the Communist Party on the left side, the state with its institutions on the right, and the military in the middle. Functions and posts in the party are much more powerful and important than state offices. Despite the existence of judicial and legislative elements, it is the party that sets the direction in all matters. Every state organ is subject to the party and has to assist. The most important office within the People's Republic is the General Secretary. In present China, he is also chairman of the People's Liberation Army and president of the state, in order to have absolute control over the party, the military, and the administration. This accumulation of power is also known in China by the term paramount leader, which stands in the tradition of Deng Xiaoping and is continued today by Xi Jinping. The Chinese Communist Party has a strict hierarchical order, and the Standing Committee should be seen as the center of power. Its members hold the most important positions in the state and has currently 7 members, including the General Secretary. The Central Committee should elect them, but this is just a formal approach without any effect in reality. The Standing Committee is not democratically legitimized and is considered the supreme leadership of the Chinese Communist Party and thus of the entire country. The functioning of this inner circle is not transparent. It is assumed that decisions are taken by consensus among the members who have a political proximity to the General Secretary. The Standing Committee is part of the Politburo. The Politburo of the Communist Party is its highest organ and thus the highest political decision-making body. After internal negotiations, the nomination to the Politburo is announced at the first plenary session, which meets immediately after the Party Congress that takes place every 5 years. Since the 19th Party Congress in October 2017, it has consisted of 25 members and deals mainly with issues of national security. It monitors the legal system, the police, and the secret services. A propaganda department is responsible for ideological work, and in addition the Politburo determines the direction of government policy. The Central Committee implements the resolutions of the Party Congress and represents the Communist Party in foreign relations. It directs all party work and is currently composed of 205 full members who are able to vote and 171 candidates who are not. Members are nominally once elected every 5 years by the Party Congress, but in practice the selection process is done privately, usually through consultation of the Politburo and its corresponding Standing Committee. Plenary sessions take place at least once a year and are convened by the Politburo. Between plenary sessions, the Politburo and its Standing Committee exercise the functions and powers of the Central Committee. Furthermore, the Central Committee elects the General Secretary and the members of the Politburo, its Standing Committee, and the Central Military Commission. These elections take the form of confirming votes. This means that there is only one candidate for whom a delegate can vote for, against, or abstain. In practice, important offices such as the General Secretary, there has been no known case since 1949 where the Central Committee voted against a candidate who had been reviewed in advance by the party leadership. The Party Congress, or in official terms, the National Congress of the Communist Party of China, takes place every 5 years and is convened by the Central Committee. It has the following tasks: to hear and examine the reports of the Central Committee and its Disciplinary Control Commission, discussions and decisions on important party issues, revision of the party statute, and finally, the election of the Central Committee and its Disciplinary Control Commission. The party base is formed by its more than 92 million members, who represent almost 6.5% of the population. A party membership still offers many advantages, such as a helpful network of contacts, preferential treatment for promotions, or the allocation of inexpensive housing. Between 1990 and 2010, according to official figures, almost 3/4 of new members were under 35 years old, and almost 4/5 of them had at least a secondary school diploma. These figures reflect that the new urban middle class, the main beneficiary of economic reforms, has become the main social base of the party's rulership. Peasants and state industrial workers, on the other hand, have lost weight within the party. The inner structure of the Communist Party is much more complex and has additional instruments at its disposal. In order to consolidate the party's power throughout the country, there are separate committees at all levels of administration, which are subordinated to the Central Committee. In this manner, the Communist Party asserts its power vertically through every province and every single village. Furthermore, the Central Committee maintains leading groups who deal with aspects of propaganda and theory, foreign policy, national and public security, agriculture, economy, and party cell structure. In close collaboration with the General Secretariat, the Central Committee supervises the work of the party organizations. These are divided into divisions and deal with extremely sensitive matters, such as a difficult relationship with Taiwan or core elements of the Communist Party, such as its strategic orientation and propaganda work. The Organization Department is a human resource sector that controls staffing within the Communist Party. It controls the party's personal deployment throughout the entire political system and produces detailed and confidential reports on future potential party leaders. The Publicity Department is responsible for ideology-related work and controlled distribution of information. The department is one of many agencies that enforce media censorship and control within the People's Republic. The United Front Work Department collects information on important individuals and organizations inside and outside China. It reports directly to the Central Committee and maintains relations in order to influence their behavior. The work of this department is focused on individuals who have social, commercial, or academic influence outside the Communist Party, particularly in Chinese overseas communities, like in Singapore, Taiwan, the United States, or also local within the aid-controlled and tolerated democratic parties. The United Front Work Department tries to ensure that these individuals and groups support the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. Critics and other enemies of the party, such as the Falun Gong sect or sympathizers of the Taiwanese government, should be internally weakened and divided in this way. The Research Center for Party History maintains a state-controlled publishing house and offers works on Marxist-Leninist ideology and Chinese state doctrine. It is also responsible for the historiography and historical staging of the Communist Party for future generations. The International Liaison Department is an agency in charge of conducting relations with and influencing foreign political parties, think tanks, and academics, as well as finding ways to divide potential critics. According to this, the Central Commission for Disciplinary Inspection is the highest internal party control institution. It has the task of monitoring compliance with internal party norms and punish corruption or misconduct by high-ranking party members. It stands outside the Chinese judicial system, and only after investigations and the imposition of sanctions are completed, it will pass the case on to the state criminal authorities. In fact, it is the highest anti-corruption authority, since most of cadres of the Chinese administrative and judicial organs are members of the Communist Party as well. Since 2017, the defendants have been given more rights. For example, interrogations must be recorded on video. According to critics, however, torture and ill treatment are still common practice, which is also known under the term shangui. Another important organ is the General Secretariat, which is serving the Politburo and its standing committee. The Secretariat shall be primarily responsible for conducting the Politburo's routine operations and coordinating organizations and interest groups to carry out the tasks assigned by the Politburo. The Central Military Commission is the nation's leading military organ and commander of its armed forces. They consist of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, the People's Armed Police Force, and the militia. Basically, the Central Military Commission is a kind of hybrid institution because it is subordinated both to the Central Committee of the Communist Party and the State Council of the People's Republic of China. This is why the General Secretary, who is simultaneously President of the People's Republic and Chairman of the Military Commission, personifies the party, the state, and the military at the same time. The state is made of different administrative institutions. The State Council, or also called the Central People's Government, is the executive authority of the National People's Congress and the highest administrative body. Constitutionally, the Council of State is made of the Prime Minister, several Vice Presidents, several State Commissioners, the Ministers responsible for specific issues, the Chairman of the specific commissions, the President of the Chamber of Accounts, and the General Secretary. The Council of State shall uniformly delegate the work of local administrative state organs at all levels and has the task to determine the division of functions and powers between the central government and administrative organs of the provinces, autonomous regions, and cities directly under the government. The Standing Committee of the People's Republic of China, not to be confused with the Standing Committee of the Communist Party, is the permanent body of the National People's Congress. Together they exercise the legislative power of the state. The Standing Committee has 150 members and is convened between plenary meetings of the National People's Congress. The Standing Committee supervises the election of the Congress and may extend the term of its current formation by a 2/3 majority vote in an election postponed by a maximum of 1 year. The Standing Committee convenes the Congress once a year when it considers that it is necessary or on the proposal of 1/5 of the Congress members. The Standing Committee retains power until the subsequent Congress elects its next Standing Committee. From a legal perspective, the Standing Committee obtains the power of judicial interpretation of law in the People's Republic, including its constitution. Different to other countries in which stare decisis gives the power of both final interpretation and adjudication to a Supreme Court, within mainland China constitutional and legal interpretation is considered to be a legislative activity rather than a judicial one, and the functions are separated so that the Standing Committee provides legal interpretations while the Supreme People's Court actually decides cases. Because an interpretation of the Standing Committee is legislative in nature and not judicial, it does not affect cases which have already been decided. The National People's Congress is the parliament of the People's Republic of China and formally the highest state organ. It is a single-chamber parliament led by the Communist Party, which is why the 8 democratic parties from the United Front cannot be elected to this parliament. The National People's Congress is considered to be the approval body for decisions of the central government or the Communist Party. Normally, the National People's Congress consists of about 3,000 members, and its legal basis is described from Article 57 to 78 of the Constitution. According to the Communist Party, the National Congress has to elect various persons and institutions, including the President of the People's Republic, the State Council, the Central Military Commission, the Supreme People's Court, and the Supreme People's Procuratorate. The members of parliament decide almost unanimously and have never, with the exception of a highway law in 2000, rejected a law since the People's Congress was founded. In 2014, the party pledged to perfect the NPC's constitutional rights to supervise and monitor the government, but the body must also unswervingly adhere to the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. The delegates of the Congress are elected from every province, municipality, and autonomous region in China, as well as from electoral units within the government, from the People's Liberation Army, and state-owned enterprises. Candidates must be nominated by a local party branch and check for integrity and party discipline before they can stand for election. The Supreme People's Court is the highest judicial authority within the People's Republic excepting Hong Kong and Macau. It is regarded as the superior appellate forum in mainland China, which supervises and governs the procedure of justice. Furthermore, it is also the court of last resort. Its tasks include giving approval to death sentences, supervising the trials by local and special people's courts at different levels, on discovering mistakes in the rulings and verdicts of local people's courts, giving approvals to verdicts on crimes not specifically stipulated in the criminal law, offering explanations over the concrete application of laws during the trial process. Because there is no checks and balances system, it is out of question that the Supreme Court could make accusations against the own government. The court is led by a Chief Justice and is made up of 340 judges who meet in smaller tribunals to decide cases. The President, the Vice President, and all judges are nominated by the National People's Congress. The judiciary is complemented by the Supreme People's Procuratorate, or officially the Supreme People's Prosecutor's Office, which is the highest national authority responsible for criminal prosecution and investigations within the People's Republic, except Hong Kong and Macau. In summary, the People's Republic political system consists of state institutions with executive, legislative, and judicial elements that are fully controlled by the Communist Party. All state offices are held by party members whose appointments are made only in closed session within high party committees. The agenda is supported without any exception by the party and the paramount leader. In his term of office, Xi Jinping has managed to expand his power and bring the party on his line. Since 2012, he has been General Secretary and Chairman of the Military Commission, and since 2013, he has been President of the People's Republic. In 2018, the National People's Congress decided to lift the presidential term limit, which enables him to have another term of office beyond 2023. This gives him the opportunity to increase his influence, to consolidate the principles of democratic centralism, and to reinforce his faith in the Chinese dream. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more interesting topics from history, politics, and culture. I'm Maximilian, and this is the Ataraxia channel.